On the regulation side, yes, I think that the writing's on the wall. It's already happening in huge markets, but Airbnb's it is becoming a landmine to navigate that landscape is just not for me. And there's people still doing it. The arbitrage model, most of those people that were crowing about arbitrage, that were crowing about, property management, whatever, they built these big portfolios. They're either belly up and bankrupt, or they've pivoted hard to boutique hotels, to unique stays, to Live Oak Lake style concepts. And those are the futures, because we got to look at the macro trend here. I am a millennial. Our generation craves experiences. As the world gets crazier, as the world gets faster, busier, as artificial intelligence rapidly dominates, there's an opposite reaction innately inside of people. They want real experiences. They want memories. And so if you can design these kind of properties around that to create that and then build that emotional connection with them, you're satisfying just this innate human instinct and hunger for experiences.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of The Report. Today, I got someone who is the creator, the developer of a really famous resort-style property, micro resort, they call it, out there in Texas, called Live Oak Lake. He's a big name in the hospitality scene in the industry. I got my man, Issac French. Issac, welcome to the show.
Rich, thanks so much for having me.
Dude, I appreciate you coming on, man. We first connected and chatted like a week ago on our hotel mastermind call, and we got to talk shop. I got to learn all about Live Oak Lake and a lot of the value add strategies that you did, where you went full cycle and had a nice exit. But appreciate you coming out and coming on, dude.
It's an honor.
Yeah, man. So you just mentioned you said it was your uncle as an air traffic controller?
Yeah, one of my mom's brothers is air traffic controller in Dothan, Alabama for the Navy, but it's been a career for him. And yeah, fascinating job.
Yeah, Dothan, in the Air Force.
It's Air Force, that's right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah, there's every branch of the military, the service has air traffic controllers: Navy, Army, Marine Corps, Air Force, and then FAA as well, which is Federal Aviation Administration. I was FAA, but a lot of retired vets will come over to the FAA after. They might do 4 years, 10 years, and then come over.
Yeah.
Crazy, man. Small world.
Yeah.
There's a lot of air traffic controllers out there. Shout out to all the ATC folks.
How many
Listen.
years?
I did 11.
11.
If you do 25, you get a full pension, but I did 11.
But
Yeah.
that's what seeded your whole empire today.
Yeah. It's funny because I think I built up a 401k over the 11 years, and they say it will grow. It doesn't grow as fast as they say, but that was my only seed money to kind of buy my first couple small deals. And then that gave me the confidence to go out there and, start raising capital and start taking down some bigger deals. Getting around the right folks and being in the right rooms, of course, is very important, but that's kind of what started it all today.
Amazing.
Yeah, man. So dude, freaking first question, man. I'm so curious, like, you obviously had this full exit, like fucking full cycle deal, Live Oak Lake, which, draws a lot of publicity and that sort of thing. You guys built a big audience there. And I want to I can't wait to talk about micro resorts and floating homes and tree houses and the Twitter community that you guys have in real estate space, all this stuff. But I guess my first question is, dude, what was the freaking key to growing this property social media, the Instagram, to almost 200,000 followers? Because that was such a key measure or metric in your guys' nice exit.
Yeah, great question. So it all started, we launched, just tiny bit of backstory there. I had that dream to create, I didn't even know what to call it. Micro resort was not in my vernacular at the time. And so I had this dream to create cabins around the lake that had a vibe that wasn't Texas, but
Sure.
do it in Texas so it felt like transportive. And found a great market near Waco, which is right in the middle of Texas Triangle, 22 million people within 2 hours, so perfect drive-to distance. Designed and built in 9.5 months, this resort. Started with about $20,000 that first day. 9.5 months later, it cost us $2.3 million, raised some money, used a local bank for a construction loan.
What was the 20K? Just the EMD to lock it up?
That was my savings.
That was your savings? Wow.
Yeah. The earnest money was around $5,000, but I also built a $750,000 spec home in the same time frame in 4 months overlapping that project. Sold that for profited 200 grand and poured that into the project as well. So it was a perfect time in the spec market, 2021. But just crazy timeline, as you can imagine, less than a year. So I'm 24 years old. We open in January of 2022 exclusively on Airbnb, traditional playbook here for short-term rentals. You get a boost that first month you're open. And so I didn't even want to think about direct bookings. It was sort of in the back of my mind as a future plan. My whole world changed 2 weeks in when one day I woke up and the entire account is suspended. Terrible, awful feeling. And I started scrambling. I mean, they say metaphorically and literally, do not build your house on someone else's land.
Yes.
And I learned that. But I started scrambling, like, what can we do to get some publicity around this?
Dude, real quick, we had that same thing happen to us. We managed a bunch of Airbnbs and boutique hotels, and like this is 2.5 years ago. This is when we started our direct booking platform as well.
Crazy.
Literally, like every freaking Airbnb property that every listing just got completely suspended. The only thing we could do, we couldn't take reservations. Our calendar fucking closed up. The only thing we could do was guest communication, but that was it. With the people that were at the property.
That were already there.
That were already there, and that was it.
Yeah.
So people checking in, like stuff was all gone. In the future, that was all gone. Reservations were completely canceled, or not canceled, but they were not visible. And Airbnb at the time, at least, I don't know how it is today. My team would know, but you call them, and it's hard to get someone real on the phone, and they'll assign someone to your case. It's typically someone that's overseas, like a VA that doesn't speak much English. And if that person happens to be on their weekend, like you're out of luck, and they'll say, hey, this is the only person that can work on your account. They're not coming back to work for 3 days. And they'll call you back at that time, and you better answer that call, because if you don't, it might be another 24 hours before you can talk to someone. It's like, yeah, it's not great.
Very similar story, yeah. So I spent hours that first day just trying to get a hold of someone who could actually speak to me, but no responsibility, no accountability, could not get escalated to anyone who cared, it felt like. But all of that actually was the greatest blessing in disguise. So what happened is I got a hold of this influencer in Dallas, 2 hours away, part of our target market. And she said, yeah, for $950, I'll run what's called a giveaway. So the way this works is I sent her photos. She wrote up a little blurb about Live Oak Lake. We just opened, so it was a brand new property she was getting to promote to her audience. And then there was a giveaway, and the rules are her audience, whoever wants to, can enter into the giveaway by following my new account for Live Oak Lake that I just whipped up overnight, and tagging at least 2 friends. Now, if you tag more people, those are extra entries. So you have an amazing snowball effect there. Ran for 7 days, and then the prize was a 2-night stay, which we gave away, which was no problem because we just opened up and we had tons of vacancy
anyways.
Yeah. So she did that, and I mean, overnight, things went crazy. Then I had this idea, hey, it's crazy in terms of the audience growth. People were just following us like crazy. And I was like, we should do a coupon just specifically for this influencer. So like for a 1 week period of time here, we'll give 10% off to anybody who books. So made her a discount. She promoted it, which is great because obviously only one person's going to win, but tons of people were super interested in the property. So in 7 days, we got right around $40,000 of direct bookings and around 5,000 followers on Instagram. Just like that.
It's genius because I think most people, ourselves included, with some of the hotels that we have, we're trying to get the brand out. So we're partnering with travel influencers. But what we've been doing, which I didn't realize, there was an aha moment when you came on our call last week. I was like, oh my gosh, this is genius what you did. We were reaching out to influencers and saying, hey, we'll give you a 2-night stay. Come out here, shoot a little bit of content, do an Instagram reel for us, put us on your story. And that was it. That was the only deliverables. That's not really going to have a huge lever, right? And then, so what you're doing is so genius because like these influencers don't even have to come to the account or to the property. They just have this contest, and now all these people in their audience are all sharing your stuff, and then they get to win and capitalize. And then what you said was really genius. You guys sent your own videographers out to the property, get your own content, chop it up, make it look all nice and pretty, and then you package that up for the influencers to post, because that's going to look a lot better than influencers coming out and just using their iPhone and just doing whatever, right?
Yes and no. Yes, that is true, but there are some of those influencers that are very creative. And so in those cases, we'd give away their stay. So if they were coming for 2 nights to capture content, and some of them were good enough where they'd actually give us photos too that we could actually use, or videos that we would collab with them on for posts. But we actually, so to go down the influencer rabbit hole, a lot of people say, well, how do you know who to use?
Sure.
Because there's a lot of bad actors out there, fake followings, or just simply not the right engagement, not the right demographic for what you're trying to target. I learned that many more times than you want to hear. But there is a purpose for smaller micro creators with 5 to 10,000 followers, up and coming. They're talented. They don't want any money. They just want to come out and experience it because it's a cool property. And we got great content that we were able to repurpose. But yes, a lot of them, we would just give them, and this is one of my biggest tips. You need to guide very explicitly what that influencer is doing in how they're posting, what they're saying, what the terms of the giveaway are, because their interests aren't always aligned with yours, and some of them just aren't experienced. So it's actually a fairly simple playbook, but I would just say you need to have an experimental attitude and try a lot of different things, and you can work with a whole variety of creators. The arbitrage is tremendous with the best ones. So here's what I mean. That first account and another probably 5 that we ran in the succeeding 3 or 4 months that we just stumbled into. Now I could tell you, and for a lot of areas, because I've done a lot of research in the country, who to use. But for those 5 accounts, they charged anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000, and they each brought in $20,000 to $40,000 of bookings. Incredible ROI and growth in the audience.
Right. And then that audience, they're all, the new audience that comes in, they're all sharing all the content and to their friends, and those folks are sharing it. And then that compounds over weeks, months, and years, which is hard to measure what that value really is.
So word of mouth marketing, the most valuable channel that has ever existed, will ever exist. And social media and Instagram and influencers and giveaways are just an augmentation of word of mouth marketing. So that's what I love about it. You're building relationships with guests. So, maybe someone sees your content. They're not ready to book a stay. They can't even afford to stay, maybe. I don't know. But once they follow you, it's just a matter of time until you become top of mind and they open up the app and your content's on their feed and they start to engage. And it's like, hey, we need to take a vacation. You're going to come to mind and you're going to be in a drivable destination. So there are a lot of people picking up on this playbook, but I still see tons of opportunity. However, I think it all comes back to having a truly unique, one-of-a-kind differentiation, in the design and the experience and the hospitality of the actual property.
Yes, this property did get a lot of traction. However, this same strategy, this playbook that you utilize, I think it's important for all the listeners right now listening to this, is like, if you just got a mediocre design property that's just like middle of the road and you did this strategy, it would not grow. So I think first you got to have that design element. You got to really set it off and you got to really dial that finished product up. And then once you have that, and it's unique, it's going to get attention, it's going to get eyeballs, then go out and implement this. And then that's just throwing some gas on it.
So what I like to call it is Instagrammable moments.
Yes.
And when you are, whether you're rehabbing an existing property or you're building something ground up, you need to think through the lens of content. So shoot through moments. So in those cabins, you walk in, they have a very open floor plan, huge glass fronts, and the way each one is positioned around the lake, you get this gorgeous view that's being framed like a picture. They're just perfect for that, cinematic shoot through of walking through that space out that front towards the lake. Then we have hammocks, and this can apply to amenities as well. So simple things like hammocks, people love to swing. They're in the trees. The cabins are nestled in the trees. There's little pathways. We have hot tubs. Saunas are a huge rage right now with the whole wellness movement. We have a shipping container pool at the property that has a window cut in the side, a 10-foot window cut in the side. And that becomes it's almost like a mural. Murals are another great one too, where people come there and they have to get that photo or that video in front of that pool or on the kayak out next to it. So you just got to think through those moments of how can I incorporate these little gold nuggets of design with Instagram and in social content in mind in the creation of the property. And it's not that you're trying to just promote a virtual experience. If it's going to do well on Instagram, it's probably going to be a really cool experience in real life. Hence the word of mouth. People are going to want to come and experience that. So
out of all those levers that you mentioned, these amenities, which one was the biggest lever? Was it the pool? Was it the hot tub?
Man, that's a tough question. I like to think it was the mixture of all of it. But if I had to just single one out, that shipping container pool crushed it for us because we were able to track. We actually didn't add that until about 6 months after we had opened the property.
Got it. So you had metrics before and after?
Yep. and we adjusted pricing dynamically before and after, and that thing paid for itself in about 9 months. But here's the cool thing. It brought in, with the, elevated ADRs that it demanded, average daily rates, that thing brought in around 60 to $70,000 a year of net income. But then when you multiply that out by the cap rate and and you think
Yeah.
about it from an enterprise value perspective,
Oh,
we
dude.
generated almost $1 million just by adding that $70,000 asset.
Yeah, $70,000, and you guys exited at about an 8% cap
8
rate.
cap,
That's
that's right.
almost $900,000 right
Yep,
there in
there you go.
value. And that's really the magic formula. A lot of people that are in the Airbnb game right now buying single family Airbnbs, and they're like, okay, well, why boutique hotel? Well, they're valued based on the income approach because it's commercial real estate. So, NOI divided by cap rate equals value for the most part. They're going to look at sales comps as well and make sure that the valuation is within the comp set. And that's, we'll teach that in underwriting and that sort of thing. But for the most part, it's the magic formula, because the more I can increase the income, the more I can decrease the expenses, the more I can force appreciation, and the more I can have control over the value of my asset. It makes us less dependent on the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows of the market and the economy. And we just saw it right now. I mean, the last 30 months, we've been in a high rate environment. And so there's been a big slowdown in residential values. But commercial values, a lot of stuff we've been buying, we've been adding so much NOI and appreciation. We've been able to still force a lot of appreciation even in a down market.
I love that. And then you just layer in the audience and essentially the brand, and it's the most powerful formula ever. Because when we're thinking of direct bookings, I mean, the benefits are obvious. You're making 15 to 20% extra pure profit margin on that. We had guests returning 3 and 4 times a year because we could retarget them through email campaigns. Because with the OTAs, with Airbnb, you're never going to get that. They're the middleman. And of course, we can never be deplatformed. So with that audience that we were creating, and I like to think about it like a funnel. So you have Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever those social channels that you're growing on, those are at the top, obviously, where you're capturing new people. But then you want to get them to your email list, ideally, because that's essentially the most valuable marketing channel that you can own, unless you had like a podcast or something, but for a property, an email list. And then once they're there, then you're going to have people book, and you're going to get in front of them. They're going to see you in their inbox, which is a very intimate place, and you can retarget those that have already come. So we had people coming back 3-4 times a year, bringing their friends and family with them, and that just compounds. So that brand that we built, 140,000 followers when we sold, that was worth so much of the sale price. And no matter how you want to look at it, whether it's lowering the cap rate or just adding on extra value, that's worth arguably millions, because they can take that. The buyers can take that. I could take that if I had kept it, or I can rebuild it and then leverage that to launch new properties. And over time, audience is the most valuable currency in the world. Over time, that's only going to get truer. It's going to only get more expensive. So like I mentioned with that influencer opportunity, that's an arbitrage. That is a window in time we are in right now that is not always going to last. They're just supply and demand. The best properties are going to outperform. Those influencers are going to recognize how valuable their services are. They're going to raise their prices. There's going to be more influencers, and there's no longer going to be that disparity. So build your audience as quickly as you can, and then use that to launch and leverage other properties with.
Dude, that was my biggest aha moment and takeaway of maybe the entire year. And I've had some fucking really amazing conversations with a lot of folks, whether it's on this podcast that are a lot smarter than myself, and on our mastermind calls that are a lot smarter than myself. But that nugget that you dropped last week, and you're telling it right now to listeners, is that might have been the biggest nugget that I've learned this year. It's I always knew the power of the personal brand, right? It's probably the most valuable thing that you could build for yourself in 2024 and 2025 and beyond is a personal brand in a legitimate audience. Now, I never thought about building that brand out and the audience, a legit loyal audience for these properties that we have. And so I'm as soon as I got off that call, I went to talk to my team, our marketing director, Megan. I was like, hey, so many good takeaways. We got to roll this out right now. So we had a level 10 meeting yesterday morning. We're already up and running. We're going to start implementing a lot of the strategies that you shared there. And that was a huge, huge aha moment for me, because I think we already do a lot of this stuff, right? We got the podcast, I got the personal brand, we're pumping content already. We got the marketing director. We already have all this stuff lined up. We have the systems and processes, the KPIs. I'm like, why are we not doing it with the hotels to the extent that you're alluding to? So now we're going to roll this out.
So here's the crazy thing. You're in the hotel world, so you get this, but especially for someone coming from, I
Eh,
sort of treated myself as an STR person when I
yeah,
got into that.
yeah.
Graduate Hotels, are you familiar with that brand?
Graduate hotels?
Yeah,
I'm not.
it's a collection of it's around 50 hotels
Okay.
that were built in college towns and that were themed around college athletics, etc. They built, Ben Wepram was the founder. They built it over a few years. They just exited for $200 million to Marriott. None of the assets, just the brand. So here's the thing with a brand. In the hotel industry, you usually have three parties. You've got the real estate, which is the asset, you've got the brand, and you've got the operator. Sometimes the brand and the operator are the same, but all those big flags like Marriott, Hilton, those are very asset-light companies. So they may have a $40 billion market cap, but they may have little to no real estate at all. That's their reputation and some IP, some systems and whatnot. So essentially what we're doing with these micro resorts and the opportunity for boutique hotels doesn't really work so well with Airbnbs because it's just, well, for one, you're on somebody else's platform, but it's a single hotel, single unit. But if you have some scale, you build your own brand, and then that drives so much value to the property. So Graduate, they just exited for $200 million. The brand is, or in the OpCo-PropCo structure, that would be the OpCo, is worth nothing until it's worth something. And then institutional capital and traditional hotel brands are coming for this space. They need to be in experiential hospitality assets. That's where the modern traveler wants to stay. And if you have the audience and the brand, which is ultimately your reputation, what personal brand is, what reputation is for me as a person, my brand is to the business, to Live Oak Lake. Extremely valuable. It means everything. And so they're paying you for that. And that's to underwrite the value of that, millions of dollars. The Live Oak story is the case study. $7 million for an asset that cost us $2.3 million to build. The appraiser that valued that property, I mean, the appraiser said the real estate's worth about $3 to $4 million, depending on who appraised it. Others appraised it higher or lower. That's always a bit subjective. But that IP component, the systems and especially the audience, is worth a ton.
Yeah. Let's talk real quick about the numbers behind the deal. And then I got so many more questions for you. But you were all in. You bought this property, developed it. You're all in for low twos. What was the number you were all in for?
2.3.
2.3 million. And you weren't planning to sell this property, but as a real estate investor, I know like a lot of the stuff that what we buy, we're buying in good locations. We're doing a lot of work, renovation, and putting a lot of risk up front. And all the work it takes to put these deals together, get them deaded up, close, do the renovation, do the build out like you did, stabilize, marketing, all that. It's like, I don't want to like just throw these deals back. So I always have a long-term vision to hold. However, you never know when some fucking opportunity, some offer is going to come your way that's like too good to pass up. And that's exactly what you guys had. So 2.2 all in. And what did you guys exit at?
7 even.
And I think this is very important for the listeners out there because you alluded to this at the top of the just a little while ago. The real estate was valued less than 5 mil, but you exited north of 7 because of the audience. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to put numbers on it because it's all a bit subjective, but when we created the asset, for one, we had a really difficult time getting an appraisal because, for one, those micro resort properties don't really fit into any of the buckets that traditional appraisers or banks look at, which makes it just that much more difficult. Now, thankfully, that's changing. I've been radically transparent with all of the numbers for Live Oak, so I hope that becomes a good comp for other people and just a case study as well.
Do you think micro resorts are more challenging to get lending for than like a traditional boutique hotel?
Yes, for sure.
Why is that?
Because most people they don't even know how to conceive of that. Is that a campground? Is that glamping? Is that a hotel? And so like historically, maybe but I can't really think of any examples of micro resorts before 5 years ago or something. It's sort of a new genre of hospitality, which opens up such an exciting conversation because people like myself, I didn't come from money. I didn't have real estate experience. I was a bookkeeper. I did have some construction experience, but I was a bookkeeper when I did this with $20,000 of savings. And, in less than a year, built an asset that less than a year later after that increased in value by over $4.5 million. So the opportunity is tremendous if you're creating something that's unique. So unique stays. And this dovetails with the question about audience, because if you're building something that's one of a kind, that's novel, there's a good chance you're going to be able to build a really big audience around that. So I've got a friend, Devin. Can't remember if I told you about him on the call.
No, I don't think so.
Devin Lorop check out his property. It's called the Pacific Bend, BIN. It's in Washington State. So he was an engineer, very smart guy, but 25 years old, I think. This was 2 or 3 years ago. He had this dream to create a shipping container home. So he bought 5 shipping containers for a few $1,000 a piece. He did all the engineering himself because that was his thing. Stacked them on top of each other, so they're like cantilevered, really cool. Bought like a 5-acre parcel in the middle of the forest in Washington, and then documented the whole process on social. So an iPhone and a $20 tripod was his equipment, and took him about a year, grew 1.5 million followers in 12 months between Instagram and TikTok, because people were like entranced by this story and felt like they were following along. This was a dream that apparently a lot of people had. When he opened the calendars, he booked out for almost an entire year within a week and a half from his email list.
Damn, gotta raise those prices.
He was booking it like $1,000 a night almost. Crazy story. Now he's building opportunities have, as you can imagine, flooded him like you can't believe. Raising capital, building for other people, building more units on that property. So he's already built a second unit. But the point is, this was a unique concept. So this is one of those few cases where a single unit actually has the opportunity to build a massive brand around it just because it was so cool. And when you check it out, you'll see what I'm talking about. But I've got another friend, Brian, who's, look him up. It's Flohom, Flohom. He's building luxury houseboats. So when I think of houseboat, now you're in San Diego, so maybe you have a different impression. Maybe houseboats are great already here, but coming from Texas, houseboats are like awful. I mean, that's like rotten, cat infested, like really bad. And he had this idea. He was like, I'm going to rethink, basically create a micro yacht, essentially. So for 250 grand, he built a houseboat. They're rad. I mean, they're awesome.
I got to look this up.
You got to check it out.
What's the name of it?
Flohom, Flohom. Now, here's the best part.
Flohom, and what's the name of it? You said it's micro yachts?
That's what I call it.
What does he call them? Floating homes?
Floating homes, yeah. So here's the cool part. This isn't the case in every city, but he's in Annapolis and Baltimore, a few eastern markets like that. And the zoning in those cities, because he's on the water, he can avoid all the STR zoning. In some cases, he can avoid the hotel zoning. So he's completely on his own. He'll go and talk to the city and they'll be like, yeah, just pay us the tax or whatever. So he gets to be in these prime waterfront 360 harbor view locations competing with the best hotel in the world, except he's on the water and it's an amazing concept.
So he just rents a slip from a local marina.
But here's the best part. He just bought his first marina. So he's verticalizing the whole thing now. He's going to do a floating hotel of these homes with floating saunas, with floating restaurants, with floating coffee shops. People love this. And this place has exploded. In the last 6 months, he's grown almost 100,000 followers on Instagram.
I'm looking at his website right now, and these are gorgeous homes right on the water.
San Diego, dude.
The finishes, I mean, it looks like a legitimate, a build out that you would see on land, but it's on the water. I mean, this is really nice. And so what city is this in?
Baltimore and Annapolis.
Baltimore.
Yeah.
He's doing it out there in the cold weather cities.
Yeah.
Why isn't he coming out here to San Diego? Let's go, baby.
You should do it. Huge opportunity there.
There's a lot more bureaucracy and red tape here. It's hard just to get a charter license for a boat here in San Diego. My buddy Champagne Dave, he's got a charter license that allows him to take 50 people out. And it took him 5-6 years and a lot of headaches to get that thing. But maybe. I mean, shoot,
are there houseboats here? Do people live in houseboats?
Not so much, because the waves here in San Diego, the West Coast, the waves are a lot bigger. And so, I mean, even out here in the harbor, there's some pretty big swells when boats come by and stuff like that. So you'd probably have to be really tucked in. And you can make it work. You got to find the right marina. Probably can't leave the marina. Does this thing have engines and power? It can move around?
Some of them do, I think. I don't know if all of them do.
Got it. And so what's his play here? Is it like rent them out, he owns them and operates them, or is it to sell them?
All of the above. So
all the above.
Now
okay.
He's selling them to investors.
Okay.
So he'll sell them to just a one-off, somebody who wants to have a houseboat. If they want to live in it, great. But then he has an exclusive management contract for any of the marinas they operate in. So if somebody buys one, and a lot of people are just super passive, they just want to invest, they see it's a great play, he'll manage it, he'll build it. So he's making profit on kind of all parts of the deal.
Yeah.
And then with the marinas, that's the best play, because whether it's his own units or others that he's selling for, he can kind of control everything that happens there. He can set the whole vibe. He creates the experience. And then he's making money on the monthly rentals for those as well. So management, manufacturing, marketing, the whole bit. He's got it.
What do one of those things cost to build ballpark, and then how much they rent for per night?
So the first one he built was around 250, but his more recent ones, well, I don't know exactly what his build costs are. I know what he sells them for. He's selling the new ones for between 400 and 500, and those things are renting for somewhere around an average of $500 to $700 a night, as far as I can see. And I mean, booking out.
So ballpark, what do you think that brings in annually? Ballpark,
I'm not good.
just off the top.
Let me just do the math. If he's getting $600 a night, and I know he's around, actually, just yesterday he showed me his numbers. He's at 96% occupancy for this year.
Year round.
Yep.
Oh, in Baltimore.
Yep, in Baltimore.
Damn.
210 grand.
210,000 a year.
Yeah.
So shoot, I mean, you can pick one of those up and almost depends on what the expense ratios are, but that's a pretty damn nice cash on cash return.
Around
for
60%.
for anyone. Wow.
60% margin, as far as I can see.
That's pretty cool, man. I know some people do the Airbnb game out here in their boats in San Diego. I got a boat down here. I never thought about it. I don't want to charter this boat, but I just don't want people coming over my personal boat. But as a investment vehicle to like do something like that, that would be pretty cool.
Dude, there's so many opportunities in the unique stay space. So
Yes,
I
there
mentioned
are.
shipping containers. I mentioned floating homes. Here's another idea
Okay, let's hear it.
I just had not too long ago.
Let's hear it, Isaac French.
Old golf courses. I don't know about around here, but like where I'm at, there's lots of old golf courses that don't make sense economically anymore. And they're sort of starting to get a little run down, and yet they have this incredible natural asset in terms of the just beautiful landscaping. Quick point on that. Landscaping is the highest ROI investment I believe you can make on a property.
With a micro resort?
Yep.
Why is that?
So landscapes appreciate. So the day you build a structure is the most valuable that structure is ever going to be. Now, the underlying real estate, the land it's on, of course, will probably appreciate. But the structure is going to depreciate. That's why we have tax depreciation. However, with a landscape, the day you plant a tree is the least valuable it's ever going to be until the day it dies. The day you plant a bush, whatever it is, flowers, over time, those things mature and grow out and create that. And they're just so important in creating that vibe, that ambiance that you're after in terms of what you're selling, in terms of the Instagrammable content. So with a golf course, you've got a lot of that already built in. Now, you could theme a micro resort around golf as well. But when you layer on top the accommodations to a beautiful piece of property, you can turn what is, otherwise a going nowhere asset that doesn't make any money because people don't go there anymore, to an incredibly desirous, profitable asset that everyone wants to go to, that's unique, that's novel, build a brand around it. Boy Scouts lodges. So I have another friend, Kimball and Christine. You got to check this one out. They had a dream. Actually, Christine got a rare form of cancer. They're a young couple a few years ago. After a year-long battle, she finally beat it. They went to Bali. Have you been?
Yeah, I've never been to Bali.
Me
I've
neither.
always wanted
Me
to go.
neither.
Okay.
But everybody's told me this, and they told me this too. It's the most inspiring place from a hospitality perspective. I mean, they crush it there. So they went to Bali to celebrate, just sort of rest up for 2 months. Came back with a new lease on life, literally. Super inspired, started looking for land. The guy literally had almost no money. He was a pastor at a local church making $45,000 a year in rural Ohio. Goes one day on Craigslist, finds this small parcel of land, calls the guy up. They tour that place. They tour some other places. None of them work out. The guy's like, I got one more place, but you're not going to want it. They go, there's this old 4,000 square foot Boy Scouts lodge in the middle of the woods that's just decrepit. And he just had this feeling like, this is the place. I got to make this work. And long story short, through a loan from a local bank, maxing out every credit card he had, and a big seller note on the back end, so that was the key for him there, he was able to buy this 10-acre parcel. So they're renovating this lodge, which is beautiful. The renovation was terrific. Here's the craziest part. They struck gold like 2 months into it. One day, he's down on the hillside below the lodge, and it's so wooded that he had never actually gone down and explored the property. And he notices this little sandstone cliff towards the bottom. And this idea just popped in his mind. So 2 months later, after a bunch of backbreaking work, a pond liner, a recirculating pump, and a small dock, they created a private waterfall with a heated swimming hole.
Whoa.
Absolutely crazy. They launched exclusively on Instagram. They have over 600,000 followers
What's
today.
the name of the Instagram page? I'm going to look it up.
The Cliffs at Hocking Hills.
The Cliffs at Hocking Hills. That's out in Ohio, right?
Yep, Ohio. $2,100 a night they're renting this place, and they're at 90% occupancy year-round in a seasonal market. So then here's the crazier part. Story gets better. A year later, after earning a pretty penny in profits, they bought an adjoining 80 acres of land. They built 3 more luxury bungalows. Same thing. They were like, we need to have another kind of like, cool feature here. They're digging around in the dirt, and 8 inches under the soil, they hit stone. They start digging it. There's this beautiful sandstone formation. So it took them a month of hand excavation mostly and power washing. They reveal this beautiful sandstone. You'll see this in part of their content too. They formed up concrete walls that matched it. They put another pump in, same situation. They've got this incredible sandstone water feature with cascading waterfalls. Becomes this anchor feature that rents out the whole property. And I've never seen unit economics on a short-term rental on a hotel that come anywhere close to this property. It's wild. So now he's doing a cliffside hotel on the property. I mean, he said he could build for the rest of his life. He's got 90 acres now. He's going to pass it on to his 5 kids. He's never going to sell it. If he were to sell it, the audience value alone is worth millions of dollars because of those direct bookings that they're getting.
I'm looking at their page right now. I mean, stunning photos. And then big audience right here, like you said, 600K. A lot of people sharing their stuff. I mean, a lot of the reels that I'm seeing, got 1,000, 2,000 shares just for one reel, people sharing. That's ultimately how you grow, but man, sick. So how old is this property? It looks like they just built it.
They built it. They renovated the lodge. That's the new one.
That waterfall is sick, dude.
They renovated the lodge in 2020.
Okay, so this is a pre-existing property.
Boy Scout Lodge. They renovated it, but it was just, again, like this decrepit asset that nobody wanted, and they had a creative idea for it, and were willing to do some hard work.
Damn. And it's like, it's classy too, right? Because some people do these designs and it pertains to like a specific demographic, or maybe it's solely for children, or it's got a certain theme. But this is like a classy, timeless theme that can appeal to people of all walks of life, all demographics, which is I think what bodes best for like the best exit.
Absolutely. So design is the biggest lever that you can pull as an amenity. Design is the most important, valuable amenity you can add.
I'm gonna shoot them a follow.
You totally should.
So
Kimball and
sick.
Christine, they're awesome.
Okay. And man.
So
this
tree
is
houses,
crazy.
that's another big one. In Hocking Hills, actually, there's another property called Dwell Box.
That shot is crazy.
That's the waterfall. It's
Damn.
insane. That waterfall has gone more viral than almost any other natural feature on the planet.
All right, if you're listening to this, you got to go check out their Instagram. It's _Hocking Hills. Wow, really, really cool. I'm a fan. I want to go visit this property myself.
You got to look up another one.
And real quick, you said that some of the numbers they're doing. What were some of those numbers?
$2,100 a night for the lodge, 90% occupancy, and then the 3 bungalows are $500 a night, 90% occupancy. And Ohio is a very seasonal market.
Yeah.
So in the
winter, it's snowing.
Yeah, in April through October, they are literally not one single night is open, 100%. And then in the off season, they're at like 90 or 85% in the off season.
Damn. Real quick, what did they? You said no one wanted to buy that property. I'm curious, what did they buy it for, ballpark?
They bought the 10 acres and the lodge for around $450,000.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And how many rooms total is it, ballpark?
It's 5 rooms.
Oh, the whole thing's 5 rooms. So this is a smaller property.
Yeah, it's a lodge, 5-room lodge. It was
Amazing.
a Boy Scout ranch.
Amazing. Wow. Crazy. It's interesting what you can do with these like tired, old, underperforming assets in the boutique hotel space if you got the vision. Yeah. Anyways, okay, what's the next one you got for me?
One other one,
Okay.
Tree Box.
Tree Box. Okay.
This is just like
That's their Instagram page?
Yep.
Tree Box?
20. They just rebranded. It was
Okay.
Dwell Box. I think it's Tree Box now.
Tree Box.
It's
Okay.
like 20 minutes away or something. It's in the Hocking Hills region.
Tree Box Club.
Yeah.
You're following.
Does it look like a bunch of... Yeah. So those are tree houses.
Whoa.
I don't know those folks as well, and I don't know the property as well. I think we've just DM'd it maybe a time or two, but amazing. I know the folks that do the social because they're the same folks that did our social, but they're at, what is it, like 300,000 followers now, I think?
257.
257. And now they're building a hotel. So they have like, I don't know, 10 tree houses, but now they're actually doing a hotel and they're going to crowdfund it with the audience they've built. So should we talk about crowdfunding?
Yeah, but real quick, I want to just touch on this property. They got amazing tree houses, the Arrow, Sky Lodge, the Box. The design is just like honestly so sick. The black with the the oak wood and then the lighting fixtures and the hardware. I mean, it just kind of all goes together. I
Hot
mean,
tub suspended in the
I love
trees.
that black roofing. What do you call that roofing right there?
Looks like either standing seam, I can't tell, standing seam metal or corrugated tin.
It looks so simple, but just so clean at the same time. Anyway, so real quick, and I want to talk about the crowdfunding. So with this particular property, like, and it's in Ohio. Like, who thought you could do this kind of stuff in Ohio? That's one. But two, I mean, the treehouse thing is like, it's such a unique thing. And it's like, you never know what's going to work until you do it. But it's all because of social media. That's the fucking takeaway. It's all because of social media.
And they're following the same formula that we did with Live Oak, which is
How so?
what I call the Goldilocks zone of 2 hours from a major metro. So those properties are within an hour to 2 hours from either Columbus or Cincinnati, or maybe both because they're right in the middle. And both of those have millions of people in them. So that 2 hour mark is magical because that's the drive to destination distance. So here's the deal. You buy land that's way cheaper, less regulation, overlooked assets like that dilapidated old lodge, and then you have the opportunity to create this nature immersive space.
Okay. So 2 hours is the secret sauce?
1 to 2 hours, but you don't really want to go beyond 2 unless you have like an Amangiri level asset, which
People
is,
just aren't willing to drive. Okay.
Yeah.
And why more than an hour?
you can absolutely be closer anywhere within the 1 to 2 hours.
Got
You can
it.
be closer than 1 hour. It's just, okay, so regulation and red tape is a huge risk factor.
Yes.
For me, I mean, I'm allergic to it. So like in rural Texas where we built Live Oak Lake, there was almost no zoning or requirements from a regulation perspective whatsoever. That's how we were able to design and build the whole thing in 9.5 months. In California, most places it would take years to even get the permitting.
Hey guys, if you're as passionate about real estate investing as I think you are, you need to hear about the community I wish I had when I started investing. Hotelinvesting.com, our boutique hotel investing mastermind community, is a group of 50 plus like-minded investors all building their portfolios in the boutique hotel space. We teach everything from how to source the right deals, how to get these deals deaded up, how to raise private capital, how to manage and operate, but ultimately how to 2 to 3x the value of these hotels in just 12 to 18 months. But more than that, it's about being part of a community that pushes you to grow and succeed. So if you're ready to take your real estate game to the next level, visit hotelinvesting.com to book a free call with our team. Again, it's hotelinvesting.com to book a free call with our team. Now back to the show.
Now, what about this place? So like even in an area like California where there's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of red tape, we all know this. But with that, you got tight Airbnb regulations in a lot of these areas in California, which bodes well for hospitality, right? Brings more demand back to the hotels when you don't have to compete against these Airbnbs. Now, that said, what about this play, Isaac? Going and picking up a dilapidated, rundown motel, hotel that on a lot of land that's 30 minutes outside of the city, 45 minutes outside of the city that no one wants to buy, but it's already got the hospitality zoning, and then doing a really badass redesign such as this and a rebrand such as this, what we're seeing here.
Absolutely love it. It's a slightly different play. And you're right, like the higher barrier to entry is actually a good thing with the regulations. If you're buying an older property that just needs a total redo. I see a lot of people doing the roadside motel thing too, which is pretty cool. There's a really great guy named Buck. Buckshot.io is his handle. And they just did a Mississippi roadside hotel, documented the whole thing, built 150,000 just in the process of documenting it. Because again, this is storytelling gold from a content perspective. And it's not fancy. They spent like less than $100,000 a key doing it. But it's like retro themed and super cool, attracting the target demographic that they're after with the branding and everything. And the place is killing. They just launched a few months ago. So the roadside motels is another great opportunity.
Yeah. Because you said the biggest risk is not having the zoning or not getting the proper zoning. And so if you buy an existing hospitality zone property, you never have to worry about that.
It's a great point. It's a great point.
Interesting. Dude, that's cool, man. So I want to switch gears here a little bit and actually talk about what you just alluded to, crowdfunding by basically pre-selling some of these rooms. How does that work?
Yeah. So this was a new one for me, and my mind exploded about a month ago. So I've got these friends, Tanner and Melissa, and their property is called, oh my goodness, it slipped out of my mind. It's in Jasper, Georgia. It's called Cypress Resort. It's a micro resort. It's like phase 1 is 3 or 4 units, and then phase 2 is another 4 or 5 units, and then they have a restaurant. And they just now raised $800,000-ish in 30 days through pre-selling nights. So here's the playbook. There's a company called, have you heard of Indiegogo?
No.
Similar to like WeFunder, which you've probably heard of.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all these crowdfunding platforms out there. There's 2 main types as the way I understand it. I'm not billing myself as an expert here. 2 main types of crowdfunding. Equity-based, which is what WeFunder would be. So you're going to launch a new company. You're going to give people fractional ownership in that company in an actual equity stake. Now, that is fraught with challenges. You could have a cap table with hundreds or thousands of people on it. So decision-making, recapping, selling just becomes so much more challenging. Plus, you're giving up valuable equity.
Sure.
Option 2 is rewards-based crowdfunding. So here's how they did it. They actually used an agency called Launchboom, which has done this for about 4 or 5 other folks doing the same thing. Have you heard of Christy Wolf?
No, I have not.
She is like a big name in the Airbnb space. So
Okay.
she does like fire lookouts, and there's like a potato in Idaho that's like an Airbnb, and she does these crazy, like a shipwreck.
And a lot of Instagram presence too.
Very big
behind these
Instagram.
properties.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
She hasn't traditionally. Now she is, because she's been on Airbnb, but now she's actually following the Instagram playbook as well. But anyway, she just did this with a fire lookout. She raised 400 and some thousand. So the way the rewards base works is you launch a VIP campaign. So you run meta ads for, a few weeks. You find the efficiencies, because it takes some time to dial in who your avatar is, what the most creative ad format is, whatnot. Then when you find that, you scale to high heaven. So in 3 months, they spent $250,000 on Facebook and Instagram ads. However, those people, the leads they were getting, so they were spending between $10 and $50 for an email, but that email was a highly qualified person. That person was willing to put $50 down immediately just to get on a list that would make them eligible to pre-book a stay at the property.
And they just use design renderings.
So
to
renderings, video renderings, they threw up a website. Now here's the genius move. They actually hosted an in-person picnic, invited people to come out, invited the VIPs to come out, listen to them, and this is going to translate into the entire build process. They just broke ground, but they're actually allowing these crowdfunders to have a say, like, what kind of fire pits do you want? What kind of amenities do you want? And they built one-on-one relationships. Very hard, but very necessary, that brick by brick. So for 3 months, they scaled up. They had like 5,000 VIPs, I think, or something like that. Then they opened the calendar. Within 3 days, they raised 600,000 of these pre-booked nights. So let's say that they're going to sell a night for $1,000 at their micro resort that's going to be open a year from now. Well, as a VIP, you get, let's just say, 20% off. These numbers are just simple for our purposes. So they're selling nights for $800, but they're collecting the revenue right now. Now, that's a liability. So now you have, from an accounting perspective, you've got $800,000 of assets in a high interest account. Okay, that's a huge asset, and you also have a corresponding liability to pre-booked nights. But I mean, that's a pretty great trade-off, because now you've guaranteed, I don't know what the numbers are specifically, but it's around 80% of the first year or higher. It might be closer to 90 is pre-sold when they open. That becomes a massive lever to raise traditional equity or to raise traditional finance.
It's proven that the demand is already there before you guys even roll it out.
Proven that demand
the
is already there. And technically, from what I understand, you need to talk to an attorney, but from what I understand, you could actually use at least part of that money. You would not want to use all of that, because obviously when you operate, you're going to have operating expenses. But like for us, we had profit margins of around 55 to 60% at Live Oak. So let's just say you could theoretically use half that money for some of the build costs in the short term until you refinance. Does that make sense? People do this. Now, there's also been lawsuits. So if you look it up, know the risks. Bubble Hotels, bad actor, the guy took the money. And, there's very little regulation with what you do with it. But he was stupid, and he wasted some of it, and he didn't actually deliver. So you need to deliver.
So they're taking the entire reservation, or just like, hey, a $50 VIP ticket?
The $50 qualifies you to book it, and then they take the entire thing up front.
Got it. Okay.
So this is another benefit, whether you crowdfund or not with direct bookings, you have the option to at least 100% of the fee the day they book, versus Airbnb. Airbnb collects that, but they hold that in an account, and that's part of the genius of their model. They're collecting interest on that money instead of you. They don't pay it out till you actually stay as a guest.
Yeah.
So 2 other examples. There's a Cosmos retreat. They just raised $2 million in 30 days with a stargazing retreat in Colorado. And then another friend of mine, Travis Chambers, who actually, matter of fact, built and sold a huge Facebook ads agency. And so he was already quite well to do when he did this, but he just crowdfunded a like UFO themed crazy resort. He broke the 2-hour rule. He's in the middle of nowhere in the Nevada desert, or maybe it's Utah. It's Utah, and called Outpost X. They're exploding on Instagram right now as well. And he raised $800,000 in 30 days. So people are doing this. It's a great way for people with no means, but that want to tell a story, that have a vision, and that can invest. So I think it took around $20,000 to create the renderings, to create that initial marketing package. But then they raised hundreds of thousands of dollars in just a month.
I mean, I always say like the best business to get into, and this could be in any line, is a business to where you already have clientele, you already have a customer base. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, these folks that are doing this, is this all new development, or some folks are doing it to renovate pre-existing properties?
Everything I know is new development, but I don't see any reason why you couldn't renovate.
What did the lending look like? I'm curious for like Live Oak Lake. Like what was, you obviously bought the land. Typically you're going to buy the land cash, right?
Yep.
And then once you get the permitting, you get the plans approved, then you can start get some sort of construction loan. What does that look like? Or what did it look like for you guys?
Yeah, so I had $20,000. The land was $133,000, and the day I walked on, we got under contract. I knew that land was going to sell, and so you've got to be fast. But then we had 30 days to close, so I had to figure out the other $110,000 to actually buy the land.
Yeah.
Because yes, once you have it with cash, that's also collateral that you can use for the loan. And so I made a bunch of phone calls, found some partners that didn't even have the cash to loan, but they had access to a line of credit through their business. So it was very creative, and they knew it was going to be a short-term deal before we could refinance. So, and they were able to co-guarantee, which is a big part of getting a construction loan. So that qualified us to get a construction loan, 80% loan to value of the appraised value from a local bank. I've got a friend, Ben Wolf. You at least know of him.
I know of him. We've never met before.
You should have him on the pod. He's a great guy.
I'd love to.
He talked to 20 banks and was told no, at least 20, before he actually found someone for his first property, which is a 12-unit micro resort in Fredericksburg, 2 hours away from me, 3 hours away. So you got to get used to no, and then also know like how to pitch the bank. I didn't know any of that when I went the first time, so I got no. But I was able to find a local loan officer who is willing to take a risk. And here's a pro tip that I wish I had known desperately when I did it. Hire the appraiser in advance. So you need to do a little due diligence and figure out who the bank uses for an appraiser. They obviously need to be MAI qualified, certified. They need to have the credentials. But there's usually going to be a short list of 2 or 3 commercial appraisers that the bank is comfortable with. Find out who those are, hire one of them, and you be the customer versus the bank be the customer to the appraiser. Because the appraiser, at the end of the day, he's going to do his job, but like, the customer has sway, because at least he can convince them, like, here's what we're doing, and you can, make the case for the income approach, make the case for the audience growth, and
give them the right comps to look at.
Give them the right comps to look at. The banks have a very vested interest in just haircutting that. So, but if you do that first, and I got friends that have done this in the multifamily space, and actually somebody else who's doing this in the micro resort space now, it may cost $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to do that appraisal, but you may get $500 plus, give or take $1,000 of extra loan value. That's $500,000 less equity you have to raise. That's $500,000 more leverage that you can use. Now, obviously, to someone who's more experienced, they're going to think I'm crazy because I'm just like saying go for the leverage. The value creation is proven here. If you execute this right, if you have a unique vision, if you design it right, if you build the audience, we created almost $5 million of value in less than 2 years.
It's huge, man. It really is huge. And to think about, the ability to go out there and, have this design element, have this vision, and then go out there and, find the debt, find the investors. And I like that you said Ben talked to 20 banks and got 20 no's before he found one that would give you guys a shot. I think a lot of people out there listening to this podcast right now, this is important. I hear folks all the time, they say, they think it's an easy game where you just go out there, get the lending, everything just falls into place because they see the finished product. They see the Live Oak Lake, you guys went full circle or full cycle, had a nice exit, but they don't know all the challenges and road bumps that you guys encountered along the way. You guys pivoted, you guys went to the next person, they got a no, went to the next person, got a lot of no's. I've had a lot of no's with a lot of lending, and all it takes is one, right? Especially with these creative deals, and that's what it takes in order to be successful. Most people are not willing to go that far in order to push through the other end, in order to level up. And once you level up, then it's like, you get the confidence to go out there and do it again, right? And so I always say, take action even when you don't believe in yourself, because action leads to competency. Competency leads to confidence. But, dude, so I want to ask you, man, switch gears here a little bit. What do you think the future is of Airbnb? Because obviously we had this big boom in 2021. International travel went away. Everyone was traveling here domestically. Interest rates were an all-time low. There was a lot of investors that went and picked up these Airbnbs at cheap interest rates. People were throwing money all over the place. And I know we're managing like 7 markets right now around the country. And, we're seeing a lot of the 3-4 bedroom homes that are more cookie cutter. The numbers are not the same as what they once were back in 2021. And so we're seeing some oversaturation in some markets. Now, on the flip side, our unique properties that have unique stays, those are still doing really good. But the more cookie cutter ones, the 3-4 bedroom homes are not. So what is the future of Airbnb here? Because I'll throw one more wrinkle at you. Airbnb regulations are tightening, right? So we saw what happened in New York City. San Diego just tightened their regulations. And we're seeing more and more markets around the country continue to tighten the regulations, which is bringing more demand back to the boutique hotel space, which is why us personally, we started a boutique hotel fund back in 2022. And we're going all in on the boutique hotel space because I believe it's going to be the next big thing given the climate. What do you see, Isaac French, happening with the Airbnb space moving forward?
So Airbnb, I could answer that a couple ways. Airbnb as a platform has succeeded largely because, going back to my design bit, they were built by designers. Brian Chesky's a designer. Very, very few massive companies are created and led by designers. They get it with UI. They get it with great design. And yet, so that's maybe what gave rise to their success. And yet now there's this, countercultural movement away from Airbnb because they're getting a bad rap. There's an inconsistent guest experience, negative impact in the communities in which they operate in some cases. So the platform has a lot of challenges to navigate. I actually believe Instagram is going to be the booking channel of the future for boutique hotels, for short-term rentals, for unique stays. Instagram or something like it. And here's why. For one, the case for direct bookings is extremely strong, and there's no reason hosts and hoteliers aren't going to go all in on, just like I did with LiveOak, on building the audience because of all the value there. But for two, you're capturing a more aspirational buyer. So you're not any longer competing with 20 other Airbnbs that you're having to scroll past and sort of price shop around. You're reaching someone who is aspirational, who sees this content, who feels drawn into it, who feels like, they see the lifestyle shots, they see the models, they feel like, I need to be that person right there experiencing that. And that leads me to the other point, which is you have the opportunity to put videos out there. You have the opportunity to immerse people much more than, say, a static photo on an Airbnb or Vrbo or in the hotel space, Expedia or Booking or whatever. So that's one way to answer it. On the regulation side, yes, I think that the writing's on the wall. It's already happening in huge markets, but Airbnb's it is becoming a landmine to navigate that landscape is just not for me. And there's people still doing it. The arbitrage model, most of those people that were crowing about arbitrage, that were crowing about, property management, whatever, they built these big portfolios. They're either belly up and bankrupt, or they pivoted hard to boutique hotels, to unique stays, to Live Oak Lake style concepts. And those are the futures, because we got to look at the macro trend here. I am a millennial. Our generation craves experiences. As the world gets crazier, as the world gets faster, busier, as artificial intelligence rapidly dominates, there's an opposite reaction innately inside of people. They want real experiences. They want memories. And so if you can design these kind of properties around that to create that and then build that emotional connection with them, you're satisfying just this innate human instinct and hunger for experiences.
It's funny you mentioned that. I had a demographer on my old podcast. He wrote the book Big Shifts Ahead. I'll have to look up the name of the author there. But anyways, he labeled every generation from what decade they were born. He labeled them based on what their thing was. So people in the 40s, he called them the savers, because those folks saw their parents get rocked by the Great Depression in the 30s. And so they knew the value of saving their money. And my parents were born in the 40s. And they are like save, very scarcity mindset. Now, he said he labeled the people born in the 80s and the 90s as the sharers, because they just want to go have these experiences and they want to share it with their friends on social media. So it goes exactly in line with what you just mentioned. But question for you, the masses already got into the Airbnb game. So the ones getting in right now are late to the party. And I think, like Grant Cardone says, he's like, if the masses are doing it, it's a good indication that you're going the wrong way. Why are so many people still trying to get into the Airbnb game this late into the game when you just said the writing is on the wall?
Well, I think it's the case with every trend. There's a bandwagon. They saw the predecessors have success. A lot of people don't get it when it comes to this whole design topic that we keep coming back to as well. So they may even say, well, we're going to invest we're going to buy this old single family home and invest, $5,000 in getting this person to paint murals and, jitsi up the yard, whatever, add a pool table. Okay, fine. That's only going to go so far. Within 9 months, that place is going to be, it's going to look awful, and it's also going to look dated, and people aren't going to want to be there. You need to have good taste, and you need to partner with designers that have good taste to create that timeless experience. But, Tim Ferriss has this great quote. He says, "There is a glut of mediocrity in the world. Please don't contribute to it." He was talking in terms of writing, but I would apply that to essentially everything in life. There is always too many of XYZ. If that's Airbnb, if that's hotel, there's too many of them, of the mediocre ones. But the cream rises to the top. And so you've got to create something that is one of a kind. And, even these terms. So boutique hotel, I think that was coined by Ian Schrager back in the 80s or 90s. He was sort of the OG boutique hotelier and absolutely crushed it, built these incredible properties, incredible reputation for it. And yet then, in mass, even in the hotel space, boutique hotels sort of became the thing. Now they're having a resurgence. The way you and I use it is probably different than the negative way in which I'm portraying it now, which is boutique sort of loses its meaning. So now Ian Schrager's actually shifted. I listened to a podcast recently, which is really good. He shifts to calling them lifestyle hotels now. So even semantically, I think you've always got to be pushing it. And that also affects, in terms of the experience, the concept that you're creating. Micro resort, I mentioned that wasn't in my vernacular when I built Live Oak Lake. I think it's great, though. Landscape hotel. These are all combinations of words that are unique, that get people to think outside the box. So from a marketing perspective to the guest, from a capital raising perspective to, LPs, from a loan perspective, from a selling perspective to investors, you need to have a concept that's unique. Now, of course, it can't just be unique in word only. It needs to actually be awesome in person. But boutique hotels, for instance, there are excellent, great, fantastic, world-class, one-of-a-kind boutique hotels. And then there are boutique hotels that in name only. And so you've got to find what makes me different. And design, like I said, is the biggest lever you can pull across the board. Landscapes, interiors, exteriors, branding, photography, social media. Implement design, be creative, and you need to partner with people that have that if you don't. Because like I said, I think everyone can appreciate good design, but very few people actually get what it takes to truly spice something up, not in a short-term, sizzle in the frying pan kind of way, but in the long-term, timeless kind of way that's going to ultimately drive insane cash flow, year after year growth, repeat guests, and enterprise value, and an exit if you want it.
Yeah, and I think the last thing you mentioned is the most important key. It's like you said, the exit, enterprise value. So it's commercial real estate, so you can force your appreciation, control your valuation, which is what we don't see in the Airbnb space. Last question for you, Isaac. 5 years from now, as you look out in the forecast, where are we going to see the residential Airbnb game, and where are we going to see this boutique hotel, hospitality, mini resort, kind of special experience, Instagrammable, small resort and small boutique hotel space? Where are we going to see those two 5 years from now?
I think that Airbnb as a commodity, which is what a lot of it has become, is not going to exist by regulation, by a lack of demand drivers from our demographic, our population. And in the hotel space, the same thing is going to happen. The commoditized, there's always going to be some room for business travel, very functional, kind of overnight, transient. I need a place to stay. Look up what's the closest thing. That maybe is going to be 10 to 20% of the existing inventory of hotels, and 10 to 20% of the existing inventory of Airbnbs for the same purposes. And we're in the markets where they're still allowed. And then that huge middle gap is going to be captured by unique stays, truly great boutique hotels, micro resorts, landscape hotels, shipping container homes, floating homes, tree houses, yurts, glamping. That's already become a thing. I'm actually not a huge fan of soft shell because it's becoming too ubiquitous. Everyone's doing it, and it's also not nearly as durable. But I like the idea. It's a unique stay concept. And again, my final thought here is it's one thing to be unique and, to have something that truly is one of a kind. There's nothing else like it. And that goes a long ways. Great design, novel concept. But then you can't forget what all of us in this game are here for, which is the hospitality aspect. And there's a great book called Unreasonable Hospitality. And he just basically, Will Guidara is the author. He ran the #1 restaurant in the world called 11 Madison Park. But his whole point is you live or die off of every single guest experience, whether you're running a hotel, a hamburger joint, a restaurant, a world-class restaurant. You're in the hospitality, you're in the people business. And so even with my concept, which was very light staffing, we had 2 part-time employees running the whole thing. Housekeeping was really the only interaction, if any, that the guests would have. But there were thoughtful touches. There was a handwritten note. There were fresh-baked cookies. There was a curated guidebook from me as the host. There were all these touch points that mattered. And then ultimately, as the owner, as the operator, I was still involved. I was reading every review. You need to have a team in place that actually cares. And that's going to lead you to a conflict in scale, because it's very hard to scale that successfully, at least rapidly, because here and there you're going to miss people and you're going to start treating people more like numbers rather than people. Hospitality is about creating emotional connections with people. So having the unique space goes a long ways, but then you need to have that unreasonable hospitality. And if you do that right, I don't care what your concept is, you're going to absolutely crush everyone else, because especially in this increasingly virtual world, people want those connections. They want to feel cared for. They want their needs anticipated. I like to apply the Steve Jobs quote where he talked about, with the iPhone, he was creating something for a market that didn't even know what they wanted. He was a true visionary. And I, in no way am comparing myself to Steve Jobs, but with Live Oak Lake, that concept didn't exist. But I had this innate belief that people wanted that experience, this Pacific Northwest European vibe meets Texas. And sure enough, the results speak for themselves. So you got to be a visionary, you got to have unreasonable hospitality, you've got to storytell. If you overlap all these strategies, boutique hotels, landscape hotels, micro resorts, treehouse resorts, you name it, you're going to crush it.
That's so good, dude. I agree with everything you just said and every point that you just made there. I do think that it is the future. I think it's going to be the next big thing. When I go speak at these real estate conferences around the country, all these Airbnb investors, every other one is like, yo, Rich, I'm doing the Airbnb thing right now. I cannot wait to buy my first boutique hotel. I cannot wait to do my first micro resort. So I think it's going to be the next big thing 3, 4, 5 years from now. And that's why I think it's important to do it or learn the game now. Isaac, appreciate you coming on the show, dude. Always dropping nuggets, always dropping value. I'm a big fan of everything you're doing and can't wait to connect again. Maybe next time out in Waco, Texas. You never know, my man. But where can the folks get in touch with you?
On socials, at @IsaacFrench_. Twitter's my main channel. And I write a weekly newsletter. If you go to isaacjfrench.com, I spend 2 or 3 hours a week just sharing insights for free, all my lessons and learnings from Live Oak Lake.
There it is. He's Isaac French. I'm Rich Summers. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.